Welcome back to All About America's Team, brought to you by Delahanty Media. I am Ray Nickens, joined with,
And the Chico.
and we are back to get into the disaster at Arrowhead, where the Cowboys fell to the Chiefs 19-9. The Dak Prescott led offense failed to reach the end zone, and we will break down exactly how detrimental this loss is for the team. But to save us from getting into it just for a few more seconds, you can follow us at America's Team, capital P, capital C on Twitter. I tweet live during the game, so look out for that on Thanksgiving. Now for the main event. For today's itinerary, we will break down this loss and talk about what the bleeping bleep happened to the best offense in football. Then we will talk about Dak Prescott after his dreadful performance. And finally, we will talk some long-term expectations of the Cowboys after this setback. So let's get right into the main event. The Dallas Cowboys' momentum came to a screeching halt Sunday where they were beaten up by the Chiefs. Dallas defense showed up and were big on third downs, keeping the game within striking distance until the very end, but the Dak-led offense failed to get into the end zone, and Dak was responsible for all three Dallas Cowboys turnovers with one fumble and two interceptions. So, Owen, what were your overall thoughts on the team's performance?
I was in shock, to be honest. I knew that the game, right off the bat, where Dak, I think one of his biggest flaws when he entered the league was his deep ball accuracy. I think both Ray and I can say that he definitely struggled with the deep ball. And then in recent years, he's been one of the best with deep balls. And that first throw where he missed Michael Gallup, and he's been missing a lot of balls ever since his calf strain. And my biggest question is, how does Dak being out for over a year, he plays better not playing for a year than he did for missing 2 weeks with the bye and then missing the Minnesota game. And I he hasn't played well 2 out of the past 3 weeks. And last week, you can't you can't even take that game because they played the Falcons in a game that was just very easy for Dallas. And I you can look at it two different ways. You can look at it where I think most of Dallas's cap space is on the IR. And even Michael Irvin was talking about how he thinks that Amari having Amari with his COVID status really hurt this team. And you can look at it with one perspective where the injuries were so hard for Dallas to overcome that this team isn't that bad. But with all these injuries, you can't really play out that well. Or you could say that their quarterback is still playing Dak and he played poorly and it was the reason why they lost. Now, if you look at it the first way, if you look at the Chiefs and you take away one of their tackles, you take away Chris Jones, you take away Tyreek Hill, you take away McCole Hardman, you take away a few of their big pieces, I don't think they win the game either. So there's that. And also with that, Dallas is still in the third seed, and they're 2.5 games, I believe, in in ahead of the Eagles. The Eagles are 5-6, and they obviously lost to Dallas, so there might be 2.5 to 3 games ahead. Or you could look at it the way that I'm looking at it and saying that this team against has not beaten any team that you look, okay, that team has a shot at being real contenders. Tampa Bay was the first game of the year, and they were in that game for most of it. So that game, you can take that with a grain of salt. But this game, this was the first. This was a game where maybe in episode 2 of the podcast, Ray and I both circled this game and said, if Dallas wants to prove themselves to be contender, they need to win this game. And what did they do? They laid a very large goose egg on offense. And the defense might have had one of their best performances of the season. Mike Parsons, again, I'm sorry for not wanting you. Ray, I know he's laughing at that because I was not his biggest proponent. I was not his biggest supporter. I don't think anyone on the defense got incredibly burned. And they kept us in the game, and I'm going to talk about the reasons why Dallas lost or why I think they lost, and then I'll hand it over to Ray. First, Kellen Moore, that was the worst called game you've ever done, maybe ever for being a part of the Dallas Cowboys. You need to. Dallas has not efficiently run the ball in 3 to 4 weeks, and they've been relying on Dak and the wide receivers to win them the games. I don't understand why you had so many bubble passes. This is not a college offense. You need to throw the ball down the field and give it to your main people. If running doesn't work, please stop running the ball on first down, because then you end up in positions where it's second and long, and then you just have to play ahead of the chains, and you constantly have to keep on fighting to get a first down. Another reason, Dak, you can say that it was pressure. He definitely missed balls that he should make. And I like how Skip called him the 75-cent man, because he has not been playing up to where we need him to play. And I saw a report, Ray. I haven't seen this, so I want to, after I'm done, I want to hear I want to get what you think about this. Apparently, yesterday or today, whenever the first practice was, Dallas just did not talk about the Chiefs game, and they went right into the Raiders game. They did not talk about their faults. They did not go into anything that they did wrong. Maybe they did a little bit, but from the report, it said they just went right into the Raiders. And another reason why I think is just Amari Cooper being out. And you could say that Amari Cooper isn't the best wide receiver on the team, but what he does is that he allows he allows CeeDee Lamb to be in the slot, which is where he is at his best. And we saw from 2017 or 2018, when Michael Gallup was the main wide receiver, that he's not a wide receiver number one. He's not capable of taking over games when he's double covered. If he has single high coverage, then he can go up and get a lot of heavily contested balls, and he is the Cowboys' best deep threat. But he's not gonna be able to single handedly take over the game as wide receiver number one. And Lamb, he's not as this game showed that even this week that Justin Jefferson is a much better wide receiver than CeeDee Lamb. Justin is able to do a lot more with a lot less. He obviously gets more targets, but I I would have liked to see, even though CD got concussed, I would have liked to see him do more. And you could say that Dak missed a few balls to him, which is totally fair. But hopefully, when Amari comes back after the Raiders game, things will be a lot better. But I'm scared. The Eagles have easily the best schedule in the league, and there's a real chance that in a few weeks both teams are going in at what, 9-7 or 8-7, and that one game decides who wins. And I remember a few years ago when Dallas was in a similar situation, and they played the Philadelphia Eagles practice squad, and they still lost. And you could say Dallas is 7 wins. It's really unlikely that they only win one more game, but you're gonna lose to the Cardinals. This team right now is losing to the Cardinals. This team right now, I don't know if they can beat Washington twice. The Raiders game, we'll get into that later, but I don't. If Dallas ends up not winning, there's going to be a lot of offseason moves, and you could see Mike McCarthy getting fired. You could see, depending on how the defense does, you could see Dan Quinn maybe getting elevated to head coach, or maybe getting somewhere elsewhere. Kellen Moore, if he doesn't play well, he can go to a college team, because I don't understand. He's so night and day. Like, he can have one great week and the next week just look like the worst offensive coordinator in the league. And this is also going to raise some questions on Dak. And he has a lot of money, and you could definitely move around his money and make it like a signing bonus so that it doesn't go against the cap, like Ray and I talked about after Sunday's performance. But the next few weeks can drastically change the Cowboys in their future. You could either have them being contenders, or you could have them in a position where they're just rebuilding and they're horrendous for the next few years. But I think that is how I know I said a lot, but I'm not high on these Cowboys right now, and hopefully they can change the way the how I think. But I'm not. This Cowboys team is not the team that I watched for the first part of the season. You could say they didn't play anyone, that they played a lot of inferior opponents, and they beat them pretty badly. But I don't understand how after that Denver loss, you can go into the best team you've played since week one and only be within their 30-yard line three times and only get away with 9 points. So, Ray, I'm very, very curious what you have to say. 'Cause I think for the first time in a while, you and I will have very similar thoughts on the out and on how the Dallas Cowboy future will play out. So the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah. So just some key points that I have on my screen right now. So quickly, you said a lot about this, but I'm just going to reiterate it because it's important. The offense of the Dallas Cowboys was absolutely pathetic. I have never seen this is one of the worst offensive performances I have seen under Dak Prescott as quarterback. They were dreadful. They couldn't pass, they couldn't run, they couldn't pass block. There were penalties. They basically couldn't do anything. And they were they were forced 3 and out 6 times. Like Owen said, they barely made it into the Chiefs 30 3 times. One of those was off an interception and a fumble by Patrick Mahomes, the fumble being forced by Micah Parsons, the only reason why we're even in the game to begin with. And really, I just have no idea why the offense was so bad. Because the Chiefs' defensive line, they weren't, they haven't been very good all year. Nobody really gave any respect to their secondary. Their linebackers were decent, but nobody really paid attention to them. The Cowboys go out there and they just get their offensive line is getting destroyed. Everyone on that offensive line was getting torched. Even Zach Martin was getting blown backwards. It was absolutely ridiculous, and I couldn't really explain what was going on. However, I think even though the offensive line couldn't block anybody, I'm still not going to just say, oh, Dak had no time. Because I've lived through a season of the Dallas Cowboys where another quarterback played in a very similar situation for a lot longer period of time. I'm not going to say his name because I'm going to wait till later on in the show, but I'm just a little sneak peek. And it's really as the quarterback, you got to be ready for that, for being rushed and pressured. And it didn't look like he knew what to do in the pocket. He looked like he was running into some sacks. He was kind of waiting for a blow that wasn't there yet. He was throwing to his first read immediately when it wasn't there. It just looked like he was out of sorts and really confused. So that's just my first point. Second point is the defense. They played like a championship defense. And that was the only bright silver lining of this game was they held Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs to 19 points. And they got some breaks where the Chiefs kind of shot themselves in the foot with some drops. The dropped pass by Kelsey that was intercepted, the fumble, but they took advantage of those opportunities and were big on third down, as I talked about in the pregame. And really, they played well enough for the Cowboys to win easily, but the offense just didn't show up. So that's point number 2. Point number 3, where I don't really understand how your entire offense cannot be ready and your defense can. So I just really want to know what the coaching staff is telling the players before this game, because this is their biggest game of the season. The Bucks game was big, but it was week 1. There were still 16 more games to play. So it was a big deal, but it wasn't that big of a deal because it was the first game and everyone was going to be rusty. But what is Mike McCarthy telling the Dallas Cowboys before this football game? Like, this is supposed to be your playoff test, your midterm, as you call it. to relate it to education, and they flunked it. Basically, the entire team flunked it except for the defense. Dak flunked it. Zeke flunked it. CD flunked it for how much he was in there. Cedric Wilson flunked it. Noah Brown flunked it. Zach Martin. Everybody on offense flunked the exam. And it was really bad. And this is one of those things that I was mentioning when Dallas hired Mike McCarthy and we were having these Mike McCarthy conversations in the offseason. I was saying, all through Hard Knocks, this man doesn't look like he knows how to motivate a football team. He's saying all these ridiculous references. He's using these ridiculous mojo moments. Like this entire Chiefs game was supposed to be that mojo moment, and the entire offense did not do anything. So this is what he was preaching them in the offseason. Hey, this is our mojo moment. This is going to set our season positively. This is going to give us the momentum we need for the second half push. And now they have absolutely no momentum whatsoever. And in regards to what you said about them not even discussing the Chiefs game, I don't really have much care about that because it is a short week, and the quicker you get onto the Raiders, the better with them playing on Thursday. So I don't really have much to say against that. But I do think that this game needs to be addressed as much as possible if the Cowboys are going to do anything in the postseason. Because at this point, I do believe they're still going to make the postseason because they still play the Giants one more time, and they're going up against Trevor Siemian in a couple of weeks, and I do think that they have a path to the postseason. They just need 2 or 3 more wins to get in, and I do not think they will be a first round bye. They're going to have to play on the road, and and maybe they win a home playoff game, maybe they don't, but at this point something drastic needs to change for them to have any shot at doing anything.
I have a one question, just or two things actually. First, I don't think you can blame Mike McCarthy for this game because I don't. I think I saw a quote from a basketball player. If I need a coach to motivate me to go out and win, then I should retire. Coaches should motivate as much as they can, but the players should have known going into this game that, hey, this is our first test. And I'm sure all of Dallas has Instagram. All of Dallas sees those embarrassing tweets about how bad they are when they lose. If I was a member of the Dallas Cowboys, I would never ever want to lose, and I'd use that as motivation. I'd use just winning as motivation. And I'm gonna blame Kellen Moore because that was an horrendous game plan. I don't know what he was doing. And you blame Dak. Those two can share blame for this disgusting, horrendous loss. And the worst part of it was that they were in the whole game, so it was even worse. If the Chiefs put up like 50 points, okay, you know what? I'm gonna laugh. But there were several times where I was texting Ray, "Hey, if Dallas like after the Micah fumble, I was like, oh, Dallas can go get a touchdown. What do? Nothing. You know who had a great game? Greg Zerline. Great job, buddy. You really played well. And the second thing, Ray, I'm gonna walk you down the schedule for the rest of the Cowboys. I want you
Mm-hmm.
to tell me based off this game or the past so based off the Denver game and based off this game because the Falcons game means nothing now. Based off those two games, what do you think happens? Raiders,
I haven't decided yet. We'll do that one last.
Saints. The Saints it's a night game.
Is it
I don't
in New
know if
Orleans?
yeah at New Orleans yeah
Loss.
okay. Giants at
Win.
no sorry it's Saints Washington.
Okay. Saints loss. Washington at home.
Yep.
Win.
No sorry. This is the first Washington game is in Washington. Sorry.
Okay. Loss.
Giants is in New York.
W- Win.
Washington at home.
Win.
Cardinals at home.
Loss.
Eagles at Philly.
Loss.
Okay, so what they're gonna go what?
11-6.
Yeah,
10 and
and
7.
then then if that happens, then the Eagles are. Yeah, I just this game was. If you want to talk about like worst, so basically, I like to look at it as like this is definitely one of the worst losses since 2016. This in Denver, it's and I've talked about it. Like Dak has these games, but I don't think he's ever had two of them in a season. I don't know. And then also,
I mean, I can
uh,
think of a lot of games like this in 2019 that were swept under the rug with garbage time points.
what
Because if you think about it, Dak would put up these 120-ish yards through 3 quarters. The offense would be doing nothing, and then the fourth quarter they'd jump start and then only lose by 10 or 7.
well, yeah,
So
but
this
jump
has
start.
happened before.
I mean, but like no jump start, like no garbage time, just like pure bad, like from start to finish.
Yeah,
I don't.
think of the Colts game.
Yeah, the Colts
I
game
can
where
think of the New Orleans game where they only scored 9 points. I can think of the Broncos game where they were dreadful.
2017.
So there have been multiple games like this where the offense has done absolutely ridiculously nothing. So it's a really bad sign. It's it really and why I address Mike McCarthy is his responsibility as the head coach is to get his team ready to play. Dak Prescott as the main driving force leader of the football team's responsibility is to get his team ready to play. And neither of those things happened and Dak wasn't ready to play. So I really have no idea what's going on with this football team where they're playing their biggest opponent of the year. This is supposed to be your, like I said, your
coming out
breakout
party.
moment. Everyone's watching. It's 325, America's Game of the Week. You got a Hall of Fame Dallas Cowboy quarterback commentating on your game, and you lay a goose egg. It didn't make any sense, and I just want to get into talking about Dak. Let's just move on because I have a lot to say about Dak.
Okay.
I'm done with the team.
Before we do that, I wonder what they're gonna do with Ezekiel because his knee and that ankle looked really bad, and
It did look bad.
he still went out and played. So I don't know. I wonder if they're gonna give Pollard and Clemens more point or more attempts with Zeke not really being 100%. But yeah, we can go right into Dak. The biggest reason as to why Dallas lost.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna go first because I have a lot. I wrote down a lot. So really, just like I was saying earlier, he did not play well at all. And really, the first play of the game where he airmailed Michael Gallup by 5 or 6 yards, it was bad. And from that point on, the Chiefs did a really great job of disguising what exactly they wanted to do. They were showing one thing pre-snap and showing something completely different post-snap. I think it confused Dak. He didn't really know what was going on, and by that time, he processed exactly what was happening. The rush was already there, and he was getting sacked. So that's one thing. Number two, he like I know Dak is not the quickest guy in the pocket, but he looked like Tom Brady back there with absolutely no mobility, no speed, no quickness, just getting sacked, put on his back every single time. And it sometimes looked like he would walk into pressure. And it drives me absolutely crazy. And that's why I call him cement shoes sometimes, because it looks like he has no idea what is going on around him. And um I've been watching the Cowboys for a long time, and I've seen two different quarterbacks for long periods of time. And the one thing that I remember about Tony Romo, my favorite Cowboy and my favorite NFL player ever, is he always knew what was going on around him in the pocket. And I told Owen billions of times to just Google a Tony Romo highlight reel of him just spinning out of defenders, juking people in the pocket, sidestepping, running around, and throwing the football. And it literally, what you see on that, the 15 minutes of that on that reel is basically a season. Like they didn't pull that from 9 straight years of tape. That's like a season of tape. And that's what's crazy for me is like you got to have awareness of what's going on around you as a quarterback because he did a good job at some points of getting the ball out quickly, but it seemed like he wasn't even trying to go through his progressions at all. Like the throw to CD Lamb, that was probably a pre-snap first read, and it was underthrow, intercepted, and no points. And I think that was the turning point of the game because they got a break. They were inside the Chiefs' territory, about to go in and get a touchdown before the half, cut the lead to 3, I believe, at that point. And they ended up with a turnover. And that was basically it. And while the game was close, it really didn't feel close at all because the Chiefs' defense, it's just a definition of getting your team ready to play as a coaching staff. The entire Chiefs team was ready to go, and the offense didn't have a great day, but they played well enough to win, and they capitalized with points when they had a chance. Dallas did not do that, and the Chiefs defense really, it was their coming out party when it should have been the Cowboys coming out party. And that really just goes along this with Dak. He didn't look like he knew what was going on out there. Not like he was concussed, but he was just confused. And I mean, Owen tells me what he's gotten so great at. He's gotten so great at pre-snap audibles. He's been checking out of plays, and he knows what's going on. But this game, he just looked completely dumbfounded, and I really don't know why. I don't know if the Chiefs are just wizards. They know exactly what to do every single time. But I mean, it wasn't a good game. And I don't want to hear any excuses from anybody about Amari Cooper not being there because we know what he does on the road 90% of the time, with the 2 games this year being an outlier. He had CD Lamb, he had Michael Gallup, he had Cedric Wilson, he had Zeke Elliott, he had Tony Pollard. That by itself should be enough for you to win a game. And when CD Lamb went out at halftime, basically what it turned into was a 2011 Dallas Cowboy team with Tony Romo at quarterback, no running game, Laurent Robinson and Jesse Holley at wide receiver because Miles Austin had a pulled hamstring for the 5th time in the season, and Des Bryant being a rookie and not really a factor at that point. So it makes me question, can Dak Prescott win games without every single thing going right for him? With his offensive line protecting him, all of his receivers there, all of his running backs there, and his defense playing fantastic. Because there's not much of a sample size of that as we've seen the last 5 or 6 years, and I'm curious if we'll see that later on because he's getting paid a lot of money to do this. And one of these examples even came this year where you have Aaron Rodgers without Devontae Adams, without Valdez-Scantling, without another big weapon at receiver, without Lazard, going into Arizona and beating the Arizona Cardinals at full strength. So that's what you're supposed to do as a top 5 caliber quarterback being paid top 2 money. And Dak has yet to show at all in his career that he can do that, in my opinion. And I might be missing out a few games. I know he stepped up in the playoffs against Russell Wilson, but that is basically his only time in his career where he's shown that he can rise to the occasion, other than his rookie year when he was just running a scheme at that point. So that's really all I got to say about Dakota. I hope he bounces back because I like him as a person, but I really am not confident in him as the Cowboys quarterback right now, especially after getting paid all that money, because he really hasn't shown at all that he's been worth that money so far after getting paid.
Yeah, so I agree. Now going with the Packers Cardinals game, AJ Dillon did have a pretty good game with 78 rushing yards. Their leading receiver was Aaron Jones, and I think the biggest reason why they won him because he had two interceptions and their wide receiver they sold. So that was the end of the game. They should have won that game, but they he sold. So I totally agree. I think this shows me that Cowboys offense is not as good or deep as it is, and you can say that Amari Cooper isn't all that good on the road, but you could even call him a decoy. He demands attention, and that allows Cooper's sorry, CeeDee Lamb. He's great and all or whatever. I don't. He's more of an inside guy than outside guy. He played more inside at OU, I believe, and that's where he's great. Going up against a third corner, a linebacker, or a safety. No, Michael Gallup is not a number one wide receiver. He's not your number one. He can be a pretty good number two and number three, but he's not gonna be able to take over games like all the other number one wide receivers are. It also doesn't help when Noah Brown is dropping balls, and a few of those balls were behind him, but still, you should catch him. But I'm not going to give him too much blame. And also, Cedric Wilson didn't play all that well, and it's Dak. If this Thursday goes poorly, then I'll. He deserves a lot of criticism, and if Dallas gets blown out at home, or if they lose, then I might be calling for Cooper Rush. But
God.
that's yeah, I it's also hard when no one can block on your offensive line. Steele is taking Steele is trying to go block a defensive tackle instead of blocking a defensive end, which is one of the reasons why Dak fumbled. It's because Steele just did a Steele thing, and hopefully Tyron Smith can come back. DeMarcus Lawrence should be coming back against the Saints. Randy Gregory should be coming back against the Saints. Um, what's his name? Calvin Joseph will be coming back this week. So, as people say, the cavalry is coming, and we're gonna see
Well, I
what.
mean, see, like the defense, they are not the problem.
Yeah,
Again,
for the first
especially
time in
this,
years, not the problem.
they're not the problem. So those guys are great, but they haven't been necessary. I mean, Demarcus Lawrence has not really been missed at all this entire season since he's left
Yeah,
because
other guys have stepped up.
they've been getting pressure with Micah Parsons, who's I mean, really, he's kind of made either Randy Gregory or Demarcus Lawrence irrelevant with his edge rushing and getting 8 sacks because he has been their biggest guy for pressure. So really, if the Cowboys didn't want to pay Randy Gregory, they wouldn't have to, in my opinion, because Micah Parsons has done he's been basically DeMarcus Ware lining up on the edge and getting pressure.
You
So
want to hear an interesting stat about Parsons? He has 17 tackles, 4 more TFLs, 4 more QB hits, and 2 more sacks than Aaron Donald. And you can say that Aaron Donald gets double teamed and triple teamed, but Parsons has been getting a whole lot of help too.
I think
So
the difference between those is Parsons is a linebacker, so he's a lot more quick and agile than Aaron Donald. So even though you're double teaming Micah Parsons, he just has the quickness to just get around the
yeah,
double team.
that's true. He's
So
also been
that's
out.
why it's such a mismatch lining him
Yeah,
up on the edge because it's
he's
so
also
hard for a left
outplayed.
tackle or right tackle to
Yeah,
block him.
he also
Yeah,
played. He also outplayed Chase Young. So far,
yeah. I mean, just really quickly before we move on, I feel like since watching the Dak Cowboys is they seem to play down against the big teams and then play great against the bad teams. So like you see
mediocre at
going
its
up
finest.
against the Falcons, they beat up on the Chargers who are meh, we don't really know about them. Um
They got lucky against the Chargers. Lucky against the Chargers.
yeah, but I mean but Dak played well against the Chargers, so I'm not going to knock him for that. Um who else did they play? They beat up on the Giants.
Well, they
Even
beat
though
up
they
on
had a
them
slow start, even though
as
they
soon
had
as
a slow
Daniel went
start,
down.
Um, yeah, but basically they beat up on the Falcons. So basically they've done a pretty good
Eagles.
job of beating a beat up on the Eagles, of beating the teams that they should. So, but when they get up to those big games against those big teams, they've come out flat. And my thing that I loved about Tony and hated about Tony is he'd choke against the backup quarterbacks, or he'd blow a game against the backup quarterbacks. But when he played
Matt
an
Flynn.
Aaron Rodgers or a Drew Brees or a Peyton Manning, he would rise to the full occasion. He is on his record. He has two wins where he's upset the undefeated Colts and then the undefeated Saints. And he played Drew Brees in a few games where in shootouts he played Peyton Manning in that shootout where he had all those yards, all those touchdowns, and unfortunately threw that pick at the end. Um, but he plays well against the big teams. Showed up in 2014 against Seattle against Russell Wilson, Legion of Boom. Big test for them. Um, so he shows up when and on the big when they play the big games. It's when and I think that it's the opposite for this Dak Cowboys team is that they don't ever seem like they're ready to go whenever they're playing that team that's standing in their way. Other than the playoff game against the Seahawks. Um and that's going to be their Achilles heel. If that continues to happen in this and the Dak Prescott tenure Cowboy and the Cowboys tenure with Dak Prescott at quarterback is they're not going to win a championship if they can't show up against the solid teams. Because that was my biggest knack on Dak before this year and years in the past is he beats up on all these bad teams, but when he plays the 500 or plus teams, he's 1-8 or 1-9 or 1 and whatever. And it's kind of coming into this year where he's playing Patrick Mahomes, he's playing Tom Brady, he's got Kyler Murray coming up.
That's gonna be a loss.
Yeah, we know. um, I don't know. I think that's basically it for the stud quarterbacks that he plays. But he's gonna face probably Aaron Rodgers in the postseason or Tom Brady again. Or Kyler again, and I'm pretty much penciling it in for a loss because I haven't seen anything from this Cowboys team that tells me that they're going to beat a quality opponent in the postseason.
And the sad thing is you're not going to be able to because Kyler's going to be coming off a high ankle sprain. Who knows when he's going to come back and he'll have.
Well, I think the good news
Like
for that is
5 weeks.
the good
from
news for
now.
that is we play the Cardinals second to last game of the year, so I think Kyler's going to be back way in time for that because they
Yeah.
have a bye this week and he practiced some last week,
Mhm.
so I think he's going to be healthy when we play him. So
I would have loved to go up against Colt McCoy and take an L there. That would have been so funny. It would have reminded me of his time in Washington.
It,
But
it would
yeah,
it would certainly.
worst case Dallas is 4 seed, best case a 3 seed. And if you're going up against a 3 seed, you're gonna play a wild card team. So it's
And I mean, who knows? I mean, they could lose to Washington with how Taylor Heineke's playing right now. So we have really no idea what could happen to the Cowboys. It all, like Owen, like I also believe that it all comes down to what they do on Thanksgiving. Because short week, they can't afford to lose back-to-back games. Because the Eagles have, like you said, and the Eagles have a very easy schedule coming in, and if the Cowboys choke, which they have been well known to do in December, then they could find themselves losing the division, God forbid.
which
So
would be great. It'll finally it'll that may be like the blowing up point for everything. I don't think Jerry, as bad as he's been, I don't think he's gonna want to sit and let the last 4 or 5 years of him watching over this team be like this. He's always he traded players that were good in their careers, and it led to getting Aikman and company, which led to a pretty good dynasty. So who knows what's gonna happen? It'll be interesting. I saw a tweet that they asked Micah after they drafted Micah, they sat him down and they were like, "We wanted a cornerback." I'll read you the direct tweet. So if did you want to move into the you have anything else to say about that horrid loss that you wanted to talk about?
Um, just read me the tweet, and maybe I'll
Yeah.
think of something.
Okay. Let me find it. Micah said that the coaches sat him down after he was drafted, acknowledged they wanted a corner, but wanted him to prove they were right for drafting here. And then Micah said, "I love what we have here. I'm just so honored and blessed to represent the star and have an opportunity to be a star here." So and then he just invited all players that don't have a place to go to for Thanksgiving to come to his house. So maybe they can go eat some food after losing.
What a great human. Um,
Yeah, I one of the biggest things that I hate about Mike McCarthy is that they don't have designated captains. Like I wish they had designated captains, and it's like I'm not a big fan of like this. Oh yeah, like every week type of thing. Because I remember when I was younger, Aaron Rodgers would never have a captain patch on until the playoff. So maybe when Dallas sleepwalks into the postseason, we'll see some captain patches. But that's always a part that I've missed over the past season and a half. And also, I don't know if you saw, Jason Garrett got fired. So there's other news for ex Dallas folk.
excellent. Well, the good news for Jason is that he made a lot of money staying in the head coaching position job for the Cowboys, so he's doing just fine.
This is true.
Yeah. So I'm just about done thinking about the Chiefs. Oh, one more thing. One more thing. So this is one of the reasons this performance from my man Dink and Dak. I'm gonna call him that because that's what he did on Sunday. This is why I didn't put him in the top 10. One of the reasons was coming off the injury. Didn't really know what I was going to see. Also, because of games like this, where he's come up short and not played well. He had that big push that early on in the season that I called Dak's preseason. Had all those great games. He made it into my top 10, and then all of a sudden, the last 3 weeks, he has fallen right back out. So I'm not entirely sure what the top 10 quarterbacks are at this point because it's kind of a disaster, other than if you're Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. So, or I guess Lamar, who's hurt.
Yeah, he's got a
So,
stomach bug or some sickness. Josh Allen hasn't played well.
but he's
Um,
played well enough to stay at least in the 10. Oh, and by the way, Ravens, they don't even have Lamar Jackson. They still find a way to win. So that is the example of a great coached football team.
Half their teams, they have like 20 people on the IR, and they still find ways to win. But
Yeah. So we have John Harbaugh up here, and we have Mike McCarthy way down here. So
the only thing
it
is, like, if you fire him, who do you sign? Because you're not
you
going to
don't need
sign
to
Dan
sign
Quinn.
anybody. You just I guarantee you that Jerry would just say Dan Quinn is our new head coach.
I
He
hope
doesn't
not.
care.
Who would you get if you had anyone? Who would you take?
I've
Lincoln
I've
Riley?
I have no idea, but I will figure it out
Okay.
because we'll I mean, who knows? Maybe Jerry's just dumb enough and he'll just promote Kellen Moore to the head coaching position.
No.
I've
Kellen
seen
can
it
go.
before. Jay,
I don't.
Jason Garrett from offensive coordinator up to head coach. I could see it happening again because all
I don't
Jerry
know.
wants is a puppet. so he can just instill his will from behind the scenes and make the head coach say exactly and do exactly what he wants.
I don't want them to sign anyone who has Dallas Cowboy blood. Like I don't, like don't bring up Kellen because Kellen after this performance he doesn't deserve to be a head coach, and he's also there are probably a few players who are older than him on the Dallas Cowboys.
There are
So
Tyron Smith being one.
Zach Martin.
But yeah, let's move on to Thanksgiving. Bonus content for everyone. We're just gonna get Thanksgiving out of the way. So Dallas Cowboys, Las Vegas Raiders. Almost said Oakland for a second. We'll be matching up after the dreadful Lions Chicago Bears game. So if we're worried about the Cowboys being bad, at least we're not going to be as bad as the Lions. So it's going to be a Derek Carr versus Dak Prescott type of game. The Raiders they've been falling off a cliff. They've been going
Lost the
through a
last
lot.
3 games.
So they're I believe at just 5-5 right now.
They are
And
5-5.
and I really think that this is a winnable game for the Cowboys. It doesn't help that they're coming off a short week and they had to travel back from Kansas City back to Dallas, so they're already a day behind. Oakland's gonna have to travel to them, so that kind of will level the playing field there. The thing that I worry about for that game is Derek Carr. He always shows up when you least expect him to. So he could just come out and light up the defense, and we would be shell shocked and have no idea what's happening. Darren Waller is going to be a problem for us to deal with. We're going to have to deal with Deshaun Jackson, who has been a Cowboy killer in the past. He's also gifted us a few games also.
Forgot about that.
And Josh Jacobs is gonna have. We're gonna have to watch out for Josh Jacobs. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, his first game back, he had a pretty easy job getting some yards on the Dallas front side. I think our biggest weakness for the Cowboys defense was the run game. They did a great job against the pass, containing Tyreek Hill, but they kind of let loose on some reverses and some runs to Edwards-Helaire. So I think them kind of one thing that I believe that they're probably working on is their run defense, because the Raiders don't have really a number wide receiver one out there. They don't really have a great wide receiver on their team right now. So I think that if the Cowboys can stop the run and get some pressure, I think they should have no problem containing the Raiders offense.
I have a very different view on this game. I think Dallas is going to get punched in the mouth, and that this game is going to cause a lot of questions about Dallas. I think that this game is going to give the Eagles they're going to give them a clear view right to the winning the East Division. I don't think that Dallas will not be able to stop Waller. Waller he's I don't even know if he's just different than Kelsey and different than Pitts. You're not gonna be able to stop Deshaun Jackson. You're not gonna be able to stop Derek Carr because Derek Carr will take risks. He's a cannon of an arm, and I don't think that anyone's gonna be able to keep up with those guys. And Josh Jacobs is gonna run right through this Dallas defense. And they're going up against what's his is he still the defensive coordinator, the old Dallas defensive coordinator?
I don't know.
Let me look that
I'll
up.
check. You keep talking. I'll check.
Okay, I think that Dallas will for sure lose this game, and I think that I'm not confident about this week. If Dallas is able to come through and win, I'm not going to be too impressed. The only week that I'm going to be able to impress me by is the Cardinals game, and by that point, the Cardinals may already have clinched their division, and they may be resting people.
So Gus Bradley is the
yeah,
defensive coordinator. But yeah, it's weird that you're saying like the defense won't be able to stop anybody because they were they're the strong point against the Chiefs. So I'm curious, like, what makes you think that the defense is just gonna now choke? Like,
because
why are they also gonna choke?
they played so well last week, and usually the script is different. It's the offense plays really well, and the defense can't do anything. So this is a very different type of Dallas team this past week, and I don't think that this defense is going to be able to hold up and carry the weight of the offense because I doubt they're going to be able to walk in and just destroy the Raiders. I doubt that. Dak
Hmm.
says that the whole team is annoyed, like angry, but what does
But
it
they
mean?
were angry after the Denver game too.
And they beat the Falcons, who's a way worse team than the Raiders. Even if they do beat the Raiders, what they're gonna go into Washington and let Taylor Heineke and McLaurin walk all over them? I'm the last thing I want to do is do this. Oh, like 1 week we win. It's like a cycle. You get blown out, get really mad, beat a really inferior team, think you're the best team in the league, and then you lose to a good team. Playing Washington in like Washington, another team, Washington, that's really going to allow Washington to, if they can beat Dallas both times, that'll definitely be, we could have a really interesting NFC East breakdown. And I think it'd be pretty ironic and it would kind of sum up the NFC East in general if Dallas chokes this.
Yeah, I
And
mean Dallas at this point is by far the most superior team in that division, but
not
that does
saying
not
much.
mean that the Cowboys can beat every team in this division.
No, they,
Because I
it's,
mean Daniel Jones last year beat us in week 17, which was our playoff moment where if we were to win that game, we would have
oh
potentially
yeah,
made the playoffs, and Daniel Jones beat us. And then
remember
the
that.
year before, Dak Prescott goes in with all of his buddies. Amari Cooper was there, and Michael Gallup was there, and they were playing Carson Wentz with Greg Ward Jr. Off the practice squad, former quarterback for Houston in college, and we lost. So, I mean, even going back to way before Dak, we had the games where Romo lost to Eli, and Eli goes on to win the Super Bowl in 2011, or against Philadelphia, where Kyle Orton is forced into action week 17. They end up losing to Philly, or against Washington that one year where we got destroyed by Robert Griffin and Alfred Morris. So it's just a continuous cycle where the Cowboys, if they are given any sort of pressure, to they just they don't do well against pressure, and they succumb to the expectations. And that's unfortunately the world we've been living in for the last 25 years. And I think it just goes up to coaching and ownership. And that's just the where we are. I do think the Cowboys will beat the Raiders because I think the Raiders are just at a way lower point than we are. So I'm gonna say that the Cowboys will win this game. However, I think it's gonna be a pretty close game, and the Cowboys are gonna win by 7.
I have the Raiders 27, Dallas. I want to give them 6, but I feel like they're going to get touchdowns. So 27-13.
Okay, I was about to say, be careful. If you only give them 6, then you're really turning your back on your man.
He can still be my man, and I can be very critical of the person. So I still love the guy.
I mean,
I'm just
this is the first time really on air that you have been this critical of him. Usually, you're trying to stop me from killing the man on air,
I
but
mean
now
like
I'm kind of being the reasonable one right now.
it's not if they go and beat the Raiders, if they hang 40 on them, like great. Now go play a good team. But wait, you're not going to be able to play a good team until the first week of the playoffs. And by that point, Dallas could just we could have a 2016 Packers where they don't play well until the third quarter, and it's like, oh wait, we're down by 16 points. Let's play some hero ball, and we all know Dallas can't do that because why be a good football team?
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot rests on this performance this week.
Yes,
Because I mean, a few weeks ago, the Cowboys were in the driver's seat, and we had no care whatsoever about the rest of the year because we just thought that they were just going to finish out the year 13-4, 12-4, not 12-4, 12-5,
12-5.
whatever. But now we're kind of at a dangerous position where Dallas could drop to 7-4. The Eagles would find themselves at 500. So there would be the gap would be closing. And the
Yeah,
Eagles, even if the Eagles don't win the division, they still have a path to the playoffs with how easy their schedule is coming in. So
exactly,
they could easily get that wild card, and then we'd have to play Philly in a playoff game. And I could see us choking that game
exactly. So
because so there's a lot of ifs in this scenario unless the Cowboy there's a lot of ifs in the scenario if the Cowboys were to lose on Thursday.
exact. So
Now,
I'm gonna go through how I think how this rest of the schedule is gonna play out, and then
mhm,
we can go back to what you were gonna say. So loss to the Raiders, so they're gonna be 7-4. Loss to
mhm.
the Saints, 7-5. Beating Washington, 8-5. Losing to the Giants, 7-6. Losing to the Washington, 7-7. Losing to the Cardinals, 7-8, and then or yeah, or 8-7,
So they're
something like that.
basically losing the rest of the year.
I think so because I
So they're going
mean
to be 7-10 by the end of the year.
that'd be pretty funny.
I
That'd
mean,
be
I
pretty
mean,
funny.
I mean, damn! At that point, you might have to cut every single soul in that building.
Dallas always knows how to string us along. They always play really well. No, they always have a few games where like, oh yeah, maybe we stink, and then it always goes down to the last few weeks where we're like, oh, are they gonna be good or are we gonna be watching? I don't know, some other team in February.
Yeah, I don't think the Cowboys are going to go 7-10. Although that would be amazing because I predicted them to go 7-10.
Maybe
So maybe I do want them to finish 7-10.
you'd
But
be a genius.
I really don't want them to finish
You'd
seven
be
and
a
ten. That would
genius.
be I mean, if they did, then I could come up with so many different storylines to propose in the off season and drive Owen crazy, but
That would be great.
I'd rather them make the playoffs and and then do what they do in the playoffs.
Yeah. So here are some matchups that I think that are really going to determine what happens. Hunter Renfro, who is by all means not the best corner, best wide receiver. He always seems to get open. Their offensive line is not great. Colton Miller, never heard of him. Brandon Parker, haven't really heard all those good things about him. Alex Leatherwood, I think, was an Alabama rookie, I believe. I remember that last
He
name.
is. He is.
So beating Parker or beating Miller, Micah, go have 2.5 more sacks. Go have a day. Max Crosby, he will eat alive. Lyle Collins.
Really?
There and Yannick Ngakwe, Terrence Steele, just or Tyron Smith. I don't even know if he's gonna play, but Terrence Steele, he's gonna take your lunch money.
Do
KJ Wright,
do you see Lyle Collins moving to left tackle?
no, there's no way. Tyron,
So
because
they're just gonna let Terrence Steele rot, I guess.
that's what they should have done. They should have put Collins at left tackle and Steele at right tackle. But in Dallas's mind, Steele played left tackle more recently than Collins has. So in a perfect world, you move Lyle Collins to left guard. Tyron Smith is back, and then you go and then you just get a right tackle. That's
Mhm.
that's a perfect world. Or you just draft a left
And
tackle.
also the different question that I forgot to mention is Connor McGovern,
He did not play
man
well at
who
all.
the man who was supposed to save the offense from penalties. They might have to go back to Connor from UT because That was pathetic what he did against
It
the
was
Chiefs. He
so
did
dumb
nothing.
to
Nothing.
take your
So I
left
feel
guard
like
out with Tyron Smith not playing. That was so dumb. I didn't even think about that, but it was really dumb. A really dumb move.
they're all saying like Connor Williams, he's been, leading the league in penalties and he's been hurting our football team. But I really feel like that they hurt their football team even more making that switch and putting McGovern in there. Like I didn't even think Connor Williams was doing that bad protecting. I did notice the penalties, but wasn't doing a horrible job pass blocking or run blocking. So I really didn't understand why they made that switch. But I mean, I could see them going back on their switch and switching it up even more. So that's just kind of the problem where the Cowboys are in. They don't really know what to do.
Yeah,
So they're
exactly.
making all these changes and they're hurting themselves, shooting themselves in the foot, and then if they're not careful, like we've talked about, they're going to find themselves in a hole that's too deep for them to climb out of. But anyway,
Exactly.
back to the original scheduled program,
Their
the Hall of
secondary
Fame
is
series.
pretty good. Trayvon Mooring, who you and I both wanted from TC, or I wanted at least from TCU. Casey Hayward's good. Jonathan Abrams good.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Desmond Trufant, who's old,
mm-hmm,
is still
mm-hmm.
can still play.
All of
So
those
this
guys I know,
defense,
which is incredible. I know all of those people by name.
yeah, it's a good thing. And they also have Carl Nazib, who is a bench guy but can still do things. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Dak will get. Hot take. Dak will get sacked 4 times this game.
Hey, and also don't forget about Khalil Mack. Just kidding. That's a joke. He's not. He's not with the Raiders.
Flashback to my first mistake. So yeah, Dak gets sacked 3 to 4 times, and throws a few ducks up in the air for. I wish Jeff Heath was playing on this team. I'd be like, yeah, Jeff Heath is gonna have a few interceptions. But yeah, this is gonna be a bad game for Dallas.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, I think in the most recent years the Cowboys have been dreadful on Thanksgiving. So
Yeah, they
it's
haven't won since 2019.
2018. 2019 they lost on
Oh yeah,
Thanksgiving
2018,
because
the
they
first year of Cooper. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
yeah. So I mean, it's hard for me to be like, yeah, we're gonna win on Thanksgiving because I do think that we'll win on Thanksgiving, but then you look back and like, well, we've actually been terrible in
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
And then
So
4 years ago, they lost to the Chargers, so
mhm.
they haven't won back to back in a while. That was a terrible game. Phillip Rivers, oh my goodness, that was just so bad.
Yeah, but I think that the Raiders game, I think that the Cowboys need to get back to they need to figure out some way how to establish the running game. Because it goes back to what my the stat and it's mentioned all over the media where Dallas is undefeated when they run the ball more than they pass. And they kind of had that one game where they passed more than they ran and they won, but now they just played a horrendous game last week, and they really need to figure out how to get the run game going. And
They haven't
whether that
efficiently
be
run the ball in like 3 to 4 weeks. Running the ball doesn't really do much because they haven't run the ball well in 3 to 4 weeks. The offensive line hasn't been healthy in 3 to 4
well, yeah,
weeks.
right. That's why I'm saying they got to find out how to efficiently run the football.
You don't.
So whether it be with Kellen Moore, he needs to change some stuff up because I feel like he loves Kellen Moore loves passing, like that's his thing.
He loves
So
first down runs. Loves them.
or the screens that we saw. The screens were just ridiculous. Like
The
I
screens,
was
like
just
the
like, what are we doing? And then also, um, it just yeah, I think what the Cowboys need against the Raiders is they need a big play early. They need some sort of jump start early on in the game that can just get them going. Because if they go and three and out or get a turnover, a punt, or whatever, I think it's going to be a long day. But if they can get a quick score, get some momentum going, get them front running, as you say, because they do a great job when they're front running, then I think it will be okay. But I really do think that they need to figure out how to get this run game going because in the playoffs you need your run game to be excellent. And at this point in time, it's not excellent. But I don't know if Zeke is going to be the is. I think Tony Pollard might need more carries at this point because Zeke's banged up. He's hurting. He's can't get first downs on short yardage situations. And Tony Pollard just has that burst that every single time he touches the ball, he has that burst. And we saw it again against the Chiefs where he got that reverse and just took it across the edge and got 25, 30 yards. And that was the biggest play of that entire game. So I think the running game needs to involve Tony Pollard more, and maybe that can get it jump started. But I think if the Cowboys find themselves in a situation where they can't run the ball at all against the Raiders, I don't think they're going to win. So I think they got to get that running game going.
Yeah, this team always find a way to disappoint, and it's sad because they are still 7-3, but these past two losses have, in my opinion, have spoke a lot more than their 7 wins. So,
I would say that. I would say that for sure. The good news is they have a lot of time to fix it, but they also have plenty of time to blow it too. So hopefully this game on Thanksgiving will be that turning point in the season that the game last week should have been, and they can get back on the saddle and ride off into the sunset known as the playoffs. But that's pretty much all I got for the Raiders game. Do you have anything else you want to mention?
no, I'm just happy it's not a night game, so I don't have to watch that while I'm eating. I don't want. I don't want to have to. I want to be able to focus on eating. I want to be able to just. If they lose, okay, food will be really good. I don't want to have to. I want to be able to eat peacefully and not have
Yeah.
to
Unfortunately for
watch
me on
terrible TV.
Thanksgiving, we have our Thanksgiving meal early on in the
Oh, you
in
poor,
the
poor man.
in the day. So I will be glued to the screen,
No,
suffering or yeah, we'll see. But
all
that's
I know
gonna
is that
do it
Friday
for
is gonna be
this.
fun.
Friday's gonna be
Oh,
fun.
yeah.
But yeah.
And now we're gonna go into week 12
Yes, we
predictions.
are. You're right. You're
And
right.
and
You're right.
Ray, I believe he won last week, but because we're not in our dorms, we have no idea. I
Mm-hmm.
think Ray won, so I have two and Ray has one. And Ray, I'm gonna read you some games and we're gonna decide. So
Yes.
Chicago, Detroit.
Chicago.
I have Detroit because I don't know if
No.
Fields is playing. Actually, no, never mind. Chicago because Boyle's playing.
Yep.
Raiders, Dallas. You have Raiders, right?
I'm gonna go against my best judgment and take Dallas.
Okay.
Go Cowboys! I'm a fan. I promise.
This is the first time since the Eagle game that I think we are split on who's gonna win. Buffalo, New Orleans.
Buffalo.
Okay. I'm gonna have Buffalo as well. Pittsburgh, Cincy.
I'm gonna take Cincinnati.
Oh my. Jets, Houston.
Who?
Jets, Houston.
Who?
Zach Wilson can be coming back.
I'm gonna go with Houston. I think the Jets are terrible.
Bucks, Indy.
I'm gonna take Indy.
Over Tampa Bay.
Yep. I'm gonna take Jonathan Taylor. That man is a freak.
Falcons, Jags.
I'm gonna take the Falcons. The Falcons do a great job of beating up on teams that are worse than them. It's the only reason why their record is decent.
Carolina, Miami.
Carolina.
Tennessee,
Go Cam,
Pats.
go. Who do the Pats play?
Tennessee.
I'm gonna take the Patriots.
Oh my. Philly,
Go,
Giants.
go. Philly. The Giants are done. And I picked them to win the division. I'm very disappointed in them, especially their offensive line and Daniel Jones.
Oh yeah. Chargers, Denver.
I'll take the Chargers.
Why? Rams, Packers.
take the Packers.
My Minnesota 49ers.
Take Captain First Cousins of the Minnesota Enterprise, USS
Second
Minnesota
Cousins for
Enterprise.
the win. Browns, Ravens.
I'll take the Ravens.
Oh my. And then Seattle, Washington.
I'll take Washington.
Oh my.
Seattle is done. They're doomed.
So we differ on the Dallas game, the Jets Houston game, the Bucks Indy game, the Falcons Jags game, and the Rams. And that's it.
Well, looks
So
like this is going to be a big week.
so for Raiders Dallas, you have Dallas, I have the Raiders. For Jets Houston, I have Jets, you have Houston. For Bucks Indy, I have Bucks, you have Indy, and for Falcons Jags, you have Falcons, I have Jags.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's
I'm
gonna
very
be good.
excited. All
Yeah,
right.
it's gonna be an interesting week.
That indeed it will. So
We're either gonna be crying on. We're gonna be crying either way because this win means nothing or this game means nothing.
I'll be crying in happiness because I'll be able to enjoy. I'll be able to stomach my meal if the Cowboys win. That's why I'll be crying.
Oh brother.
All right. The floor is yours to get us to. You take the outro.
Yeah, I know this episode has been more depressing, and I have been sadder than usual. But it's time that I've realized that I need to be. My brother has that. It is time that I become realistic, and hopefully they win the game, and this is just a fluke because in all reality Dallas did have a lot of injuries, so that definitely played a part in it, and I think that if the Kansas City had this many losses, they would have won as well. But everyone tune in to on Twitter at America's Team capital P capital C to tune into Ray tweeting, and I will also be sending him things that I feel about the game. And just if you want to get the live recordings of these games of these podcasts, it's at YouTube All About America's Team, and twice a week, Ray and I, sometimes 3 times a week, Ray and I will be live recording, and we will be doing that on Friday to talk about the Raiders Cowboy game. And since we have a longer week, not playing until next Sunday, Ray and I are gonna kind of talk about the future and how that win plays into Dallas's future, or what they can do to if they win, what they can do to continue to win, or if they lose, how they can right the ship. But I hope you all have a good Thanksgiving, a healthy and safe one, and we are looking forward to either crying or laughing, maybe a little bit of both on Thursday, and then we'll be right back on Friday to give you all the very detailed game report. And Ray, anything you want to say before we tie a knot on this
Yeah.
one?
If you tune into our YouTube broadcast, you will be able to see what I am holding and what Owen has acknowledged. We're not going to tell you, but if you want to find that out, just check the live recording. But yeah, Owen couldn't have done it any better. We'll be back Friday, but until then, happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy the mashed potatoes and the turkey, cranberry sauce,
Oh
etc.
yeah.
And we will see you guys Friday, either overjoyed or the latter. So take care, guys. Have a great rest of your day, and go Cowboys.
Have a healthy and safe week, y'all. Go Cowboys.